Mishra, Senior Delegation Manager, TRF, Jamshedpur Haldia. So I would like to tell some brief introduction about him. Mr. Anil Kumar Mishra is a graduate in mechanical engineering and has completed its master's in design of mechanical equipment from the Department of Mechanical Engineering, Birla Institute of Technology, Mr. Rachi. He has a wide experience of 13 years in the field of design of bulk material handling and equipment, and he also works in the MNC company like TRA and L&T. He is also certified as a value method associate by the Invest India and the Save International. So, good afternoon, sir. So, I am handing the session to him. So,
Hello. 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 Good afternoon, everyone. So, today is the second session of the day, and this session will be maximum focus on how industrial revolution takes place and how it is impacted by robotics and robotics enable what are the technologies, how robotics growth. So, the topic we will cover in this session is industrial revolution. What is industrial revolution? How it propagates as the days pass on, and what are its stages. Next will be the what is industrial fourth revolution, because now we are running towards fourth revolution and moving towards the fifth revolution. So that we will cover. After that, what are the components of fourth revolution? Because before coming to know to the fifth revolution, it is better to understand the fourth revolution first. Next will be the introduction about robotics. What is robotics basically, and what are its components? What are its enabled technologies? What are the other parameters which being covered to make the robot made for industrial utilization? Then significance of robot and classification. Then robot components and robotics application in today's world, what it will be, and what are the robots that can be in future. So all these topics we will cover in coming session. First we will start with industrial revolution. What is industrial revolution? Actually, when the day passes and human beings need some modification to make their life easy. To come to this conclusion, day by day, improvements have been taken place. Like if we see the first mechanical equipment which the human beings are being used is the wheel. Wheel is the first mechanical equipment we are using since very ancient days. Now that wheel is being restructured, revised, or coming to the new technology, it is being of different kind. Like now power-driven wheels are also available. So the first wheel which is made of wood, now we are having wheel with power-driven capacity or facility. So how that evolution takes place? That is the part of industrial evolution or industrial revolution. We can say it revolution also because it is a stepwise process. It is coming, it is not like that we have made a wheel and suddenly we incorporated some rotating power or some motor kind of thing which enables this battery so that it can be rotated automatically. It is not like that. It is not happens in a single day or in a 10 days. It takes time. So this involvement, this progress is basically called industrial revolution. And this revolution is defined by the scientist called Robert E. Lucas Jr. He has defined industrial revolution for what is happening first time in the history. The living standard of masses like human being or any other living thing that is being impacted, and the ordinary people have begun to undergo with sustained growth. Means that growth is not for one day, that growth is consecutive and it will be to be done for number of years or maybe in centuries. That is sustained growth, and that change, that sustained growth with the change is called revolution. When it comes to the application in industry, it will be industrial revolution. When it comes to the agriculture, it will become agricultural revolution. So this is how Robert E. Lucas Jr. has defined this concept. So when we say revolution is not a one-day program or one-day function or one-day kind of thing, it is being a day-to-day activity which will take maybe centuries or number of decades. So this is how we are progressed. Like in the year of early of 17th century, like 1764, the first spinning jenny. Spinning jenny is basically a machine which is used in cotton industry to weave by weaving. The cotton is required to be passed through several processes. So one of the processes is being carried on with this spinning jenny. So this spinning jenny is a development or it is an innovation also because it was against that natural process or conventional process. So it was started in the year 1764 in the century of 17th. After that, James Watt engine came, which is known as first industrial revolution, when James Watt engine came, and that jet engine, steam engine, is converted into steam locomotives. So all these processes, all these steps that comes to make industrial revolution will take major advancement in the life of human being. Next is another important is electrical generator. Electrical generator, now we all know the electric generator is nowadays the basic source of electric power. So this power is this electric generator is developed by Michael Faraday in his event at 18th century, near about 1831. After that, that electrical generator is being converted into different sources of to convert them into mechanical power. So this again comes to mechanical reverse is another application which is used in agricultural industry for big advancement. this is how we are propagating in our day-to-day life. Now, the third thing is how industrial revolution impacts our society. So when it comes to the society, the very basic thing is what is the limitation? The limitation is technology. Earlier days we don't have that much technology, we don't have that much resources to utilize those technologies. But now, step by step, how we proceed, that is being covered over here. So the traditional society have a limited of technology and limited resources to their static society, because that was not that much dynamic to do anything. After that, it was enabled by transition that influenced the interest of people or human beings to convert them into preconditioning stage, which is called commercial exploration, which comes in the field of agricultural and extractive industry. The third stage is to take off, convert it into manufacturing sector. After agricultural industry, manufacturing industry is the second largest industry which is being highly affected by this industrial revolution. So, how that development takes place, that is through installation of railroads or their convenience medium, and the third part is the social and political situations of that region. So, how that take-off stage, manufacturing sector, is being further implemented, and what are the factors that affected that is investment in manufacturing. Earlier in India, the manufacturing sector is not that much grown. It was very little stage. But day by day, further investments are there, further foreign investments came, and that has grown. Now it is become very developed and wider industry in India, because now manufacturing sector is one of the growing industry in India. So everyone wants to contribute and they want to put their best effort over here. So that is also a drive. Next one is the high mass consumption. Before assembly line, before mass production, in India the production rate to industrial development is very less. So the requirement is to produce more and more. How that production is to be increased? For that, to increase that production, mass production level, mass production assembly line is being enabled in India. So what are the, in industrial revolution, what are the sectors that being majorly affected? First one is power generation. Power generation, earlier days, the power is developed through coal, without converting into coke. But as the day pass on, concept of coke come into picture, and that plays a vital role by converting coal power to electrical power. Before that, steam power we were having, that was developed by Denmark. Through steam turbine, we were used to generate power. So as the day passed on, we have converted from steam power to coal-based power plant. Now we are running to some not the conventional method, unconventional method, non-conventional method of energy sources like windmill or solar power. That also are being coming. That is also a revolution being takes place in the field of power generation. Next industry which is being affected is textile industry. Before industrial revolution, the textile industry was a very slow moving industry. Means it was very time consuming process to convert the cotton into threads or convert them into clothes. That was very time taking. But after industrial revolution, equipments are being made which converted the fast consumption and fast growing, fast weaving of threads to convert them into cotton. The third industry is metallurgy industry. Metallurgy industry was also affected same as earlier. The coke was not there. That melting of steel being taken by directly through coal by making it into powder form or in small granular form. That was used to burn inside the furnace to make steel melted. But after coke came, after the invention of coke, that is far easy and far time is requirement, time is less, and also cost saving to convert the raw iron ore into steel. So this is the another area where industrial revolution impacted. Next is the transportable and telecommunication system. These are also being affected by industrial revolution because now railroad facilities or any transportable facilities are much more improved than our ancient days. So ancient days roads are not there, not aeroplanes are not there, airports are not there. Now we are using all these things. So all these things are get done in one day. It is a step-by-step development process, and that is came through industrial revolution. So what are the causes of industrial revolution? The causes means what triggered to make people to improve their process or equipment to bring them in a revolution stage. First one is dependency on technology, means whatever technology they were having at that time, people are much more dependent on them. They didn't think how to overcome those factors. So once it is triggered, it is being completely spread out, and everyone is again being dependent on the implemented system. So this is how the process propagates. Next is impact of education. The education level in India was not that much good at that time. So as we all know, we were under British control. So that British control and level of education and literacy were very less what we are having right now. Third is us to increase quality of human life. Before industrial revolution, people were used to pull the cart or that agriculture machines for agriculture process. But as the revolution came and revolution takes place, it was necessary to increase the quality of human life. So the next result of industrial revolution actually increase the make human life much more easier than the earlier. Third, what is the agricultural revolution? Agricultural revolution we discussed already. It is basically a development of all the phases of agriculture, like agricultural equipment were developed, agricultural process were developed, agricultural fertilizers were developed, which were not at those times. But now we are coming to use all these things which brings agricultural revolution. As we know, industrial revolution was taken into Britain. Why it is taken in Britain? Why not other countries? So these are the factors which make Britain is the best place to bring forward for industrial revolution. Like they were having capital, they were much more money, they had much more money to bring investment, to bring down the new things like research work. But in India, that at that time, that due to we are under British control, we don't have that much money power and that much dependency. We can do research like this. Next is colonies and markets for manufactured goods. In Britain at that time, markets were very much developed as compared to any other country in the world. So whatever they produce, it is easy for them to sell. So they can easily generate the revenue and they can convert it into money again. That facility is having very good market, very good supporting pillar for retail. That is raw material production. At that time, they used to produce raw material in a very big aspect as compared to any other country at that time. That is the workers. As if we see that the geographical configuration of Britain, it is connected with many other countries without much more travel barrier. So it is easy for workers to come to Britain and go from there, or Britain people can go to other countries. That is very much easy for them. So that also impacted for bringing industrial revolution to Britain first. Merchant marine largest merchant fleet. At that time, Britain was having the largest merchant ship. It was used for commercial purpose and for commercial goods carrier at that time. That is the extent harbour and port, since they were having all those facilities. Politically, they are very much special, very much stable, and their stability brings much more effort to bring that business growth. Next is private benefit. The private of Britain was very good for textile industry, for cotton industry. So they were utilized that part and developed their revolution very hard. No internal trade barrier. At that time, Britain does not have any trade barrier, so they can easily sell their whatever they manufacture, sell to another country, and another country can sell their products into Britain without any barrier. So that also affected that revolution. Next is what are the stages of industrial revolution. So basically, we consider 4 stages of revolution. First revolution is the mechanization. Mechanization means where mechanization starts, and that mechanization starts through first mechanization starts with steam power. In the early of 18th century, when steam powered engines and pumps were utilized. In second stage, the mass production has been taken place. For doing mass production, new assembly lines were developed in many of the organizations. Like Tata Motors also, they have also developed assembly lines for their mass production. And the third stage, the computer or automation process comes into picture to convert those assembly lines much more faster and much more precise and quality, high quality wise highly superior. Fourth is that is 21st century, where robotics and AI and other enabled devices like augmented reality or virtual reality comes into picture. So this is the example of first industrial revolution, when steam power come into picture, and it is being developed by James Watt. So this is the in the early 18th century. This is the very first engine which was developed. Before that, mostly the coal-based concepts are there. In second industrial revolution, as we discussed, oil, gas, and electric power comes into picture, and some communication devices like telegram or telephone with wire connectivity with a limited range, that comes into picture. And this second revolution basically brought out mass production concept. In third industrial revolution, added the concept of computers and advanced telecommunication and data analysis incorporated into manufacturing process. Some sort of digitization like NCDNC machines were also enabled in the age of third industrial revolution. When we come to fourth industrial revolution, it is basically converting the same mass production with high quality and high precision and accuracy. So, when we come to high precision and high accuracy with advanced communication, it comes with AI and robotics. Because there are certain areas where human interference is very difficult to achieve. So at that point, robots are coming to picture. So this is introduction to the fourth revolution. What are the key enablers for fourth revolution? Fourth revolution basically required digital transformation, because before fourth revolution, the data of any organization or any manufacturing unit that are being kept in a hard copy format. That was very difficult to manage. So there is a requirement of digitalization for easily handling of those data and how to utilize those data for future aspects. Like, suppose there is a machine which requires maintenance maybe every 3 years or 3 months. But if we have sufficient data, we can plan, we can predict when the maintenance time is arrived or not. Because no one is going to turn all the pages to find out when that maintenance has been taken care of. If it is one or two equipment, it can be managed. But where the number of equipment is more than 100 or 500, it is very difficult to manage those things. So these transformations required enable the digital transformation. Second is delivering real-time decision making. It means decision making in industrial aspect is a very big thing. Means you have to plan there, you have to take decision on the time. If you fail to take decision, there will be losses. To overcome losses, it is required to take decision on time and on the spot. Third one is enhanced productivity and production flexibility. Now, earlier in mass production assembly line, there was a fixed line. In that line, this is the assembly process, this is being taken off. But nowadays, assembly lines are so manufactured or so controlled in one assembly line, more than 5 or 6 operations can be done at a time and can be monitored and can be controlled. So these are the requirements. When mass production we are going, the requirements are being generated, and to overcome those requirements, they are converted in enablers for industrial revolution. That is improvement in supply chain, third supply chain. In supply chain, what happens actually? Every component has a lead time. So, how to program or how to manage, how to plan for that lead time? That lead time facility, when your parts are going to need to be repaired or need to be replaced, that depends on how much hour it is worked, already worked. Based on that, you have to plan for your further supply chain to this order and convert those orders into actual components so that you can replace to your machinery. Next, the fourth revolution is not only the revolution, it is a kind of innovation also. Because fourth revolution, so many concepts and so many technologies are being developed and created like AI, like virtual reality. These are the pillars basically for the fourth industrial revolution. Last is the design, graphic prototyping and customization. Actually, now if we come to the fourth industrial revolution, everyone is in a fast mode. Means everything is required on a very fast, very less lead time. So how to do that? To convert the existing product or to convert the product which is required, which is in mind, to bring them into the real world. More and more data if you have, you can convert those data into prototyping, and by prototyping you can convert that to the real world footprint. Suppose there is a part which is having very complex geometry and that needs to be replaced with new one. But we don't have that supplier right now. At that point of time, that graphic prototyping come into application and they will convert that part with a coordinate measuring, with the help of coordinate measuring machines or different machines into the layout part, and the layout is converted into your machinery components. So this is how fourth industrial revolution propagates. What are the components? Components are first is technology, obviously. The technology is the first one. Without technology, these revolutions are very difficult. So the technologies which are enablers are robotics applications in design field, in construction, in operations, in assembly line. Then 3D printing. Now suppose there is a power plant. In power plant, numerous numbers of equipments and junctions are there, where raw material is coming, it is being processed, it is being converted to the another part, and finally power is being generated. So now we are having that facility, we can take the 3D print of that whole plant into a single system, and we can control that plant also from sitting in a small room. It is far away from that plant. Now that facility is also available. So this is the technology which we are using right now, which is outcome of fourth industrial revolution. Next is big data. Big data is the main input. As many as data we are having, that much chance of improvement or accuracy will be increased. Because now we are playing in the real world, now we are playing with data. Playing with data means one data can be used, one set of data basically can be used for different types of anticipation. Next is people. How actually in industrial revolution, whatever that advancements taken place, these advancements convert human life much more easy and increase the efficiency of the human being and plant also and industry also. But as the advancements take place, it is also required for people to increase their skill level. Because when you increase your skill skill level, then only you can match with the current industrial revolution. Like robotics is there, then there is a need of robotics programmer. If you can't program, you will have a robotics which is of worthless. So, as revolution takes place, people need to develop their skill and continuous learning. You should continue to learn. When you are stopped, that is over. Then process. For manufacturing of components, there are several processes. All these groups, suppose there is a pen, that pen involves so many processes to convert into pen from raw material. So, that raw material to pen, bringing it into a pen set, that what are the processes are there, that process needs to be updated day by day. For updation, it is required to check their process efficiency. If we check the process efficiency, then only we will be able to find where is the lag. Unless until we find the lag, we are not able to improve the process. So this is also a enabler for post-industrial revolution, so that we can update or meet the current market demand. That is standardization. Now if you see the product like water bottle, maybe all the water bottles are not in the same shape or same size, but most of the water bottles have caps of the same size. They can be fitted to anyone. So that kind of a standardization actually helps to further improve this revolution. What are the technologies that drive industrial revolution? Nowadays we are having technologies like autonomous robot. We can work independently, which can take decisions also, which can move the equipment, move the material from one place to another place with respect to their size and weight. That decision, where to move, when to move, that individual decision is being taken care by autonomous robot because they are programmed accordingly. Next is simulation. Simulation is basically converting your ideas, different ideas or different process into a single platform is called simulation. All the process, all the steps, whatever is being followed, when it is coming to a single platform in a once go process, you will find it in a once go process, that will be simulation. So that simulation helps us to find what is the process going on and what is the drawback of this process. Third is system integration. System integration means a system is comprised of much more number of process or equipment. So, if in a assembly line, suppose any one of the station breaks or fails, all assembly line will stop suddenly without further any consideration to what is happened or what is not happened. So, it is to improve reliability of the system, to improve the reliability of the process. Systems are being integrated between each other so that the reliability can be improved. And there are certain process of manufacturing where it is required that if any system fails, any of the station failed, complete manufacturing unit could stop. This is the requirement. Somewhere, some point of time, this is requirement also. So, for this purpose, system integration takes place. Next is industrial Internet of Things. Means, what are the things we are getting from Internet? Some enablers, some process, some concept for industry, for industrial development. All these things are for industrial, for Internet of Things. Next is cyber security. As we are running with large number of data, to protect the data from malware or from some other thing, it is required to make them secure. That comes under cyber security. Next is adaptive manufacturing. So adaptive manufacturing is basically adaptation of process or system to your existing system. Next is augmented reality and big data analysis. So as we have so many data, how to analyze those data very fast and very less time, that comes under big data analytics. Then cloud computing. Cloud computing is basically a process where all the data are kept and being processed without using your on-hand storage device. So this is what we have right now. Next is challenges for future growth. What are the challenges? That challenges is first is workforce skill gap. Earlier, before fourth industrial revolution, the skill is of different type, like to operate machine. Now the skill is required to operate robot. So there is a skill gap. To improve that, what to do to improve that skill gap, that we will see that. Then is change management. When we come to industrial robotics, there is a change in your process system in complete organization at organization, department level or complete organization level. Third is cyber security. Since this all things run about data and all, so to protect data is also another challenge. How to protect those data. Next is legacy and systems. Legacy and IT system means to process and to enable the robotics. We need to protect our IT system through some legal provisions also. Because there are certain legal provisions for use of robotics, for use of data applications. Next is cost and resource limitations. Since we are implementing our present organization to the fourth revolution standard, it requires cost for high-end machinery, high precision machinery, and advanced systems. So it all involves cost. So this is how we overcome those challenges. Like workforce transition. For upskilling the workforce, we need to go to workforce transition. We have to transit our workforce to the high skill. How that high skill can be done, that is through training or through learning or some short-term courses are there through which you can do it. Then cost barrier. Cost barrier for eliminate cost barrier, we need to go to acquiring sustaining of robotics. Then skill specialization. basically to do the effective integration of all our resources and present whatever the system and process we are having. Next is data flow. Means data must flow from one department to another department or one process to another process in a very streamlined manner. It should not be break anywhere. If it breaks, there will be some misconduct to be taken place. So data flow issue should be taken care. Next is job displacement. Means nature of job will be changed. Now for machine, those who run the machine, they need to run machine as per machining operating command. But when we come to industrial revolution 4.0, they need to program for the robotics. They will not go and run the machine if they get in their shop floor. They need to program the machine for robotics, and robot will go and do the machining and everything. So next we come to the robot. What is robot? As per RIA, Robot International Agency or Federation of Robot Agency, that name came from RIA to FRA, that defines what is robot. Robot is basically an electrical, mechanical or electromechanical kind of element, which may be mechanical, which may be electrical, or which may be electromechanical, and that should be reprogrammable. It should not be like that. Once it is programmed and it is over. No, it should be reprogrammable, subjected to the robot configuration should be like that. You can do that programming function. Next is, it must be designed to move material, parts or tools or any specialized kind of material or tools or devices from one place to another place or from one process to another process. So the picture here basically shows how a humanoid robot looks like. Now the robots are being converted as humanoid robots, which can do work just like human beings. The next part, anthropomorphic characteristics, that we discuss in the next slide. So how robot evolution takes place? Robots we are seeing in nowadays, that is much more upgraded and upskilled than what we are using, say, a century back. So how that evolution takes place? That evolution, first generation of robotics, where the robot called Unimed, that is the industrial robot which used to transport die casting or welded parts from one place to another place, because they are hot in nature and it is very difficult to carry from one place to another place, because the precision and very careful movement is required. So this is the first generation of the robot, where we are limited to just to move the material and do all the welding process, that's all. In second generation, the robot named Vapor 1 is a kind of humanoid robot which is having some sort of intelligence is being programmed in that robot. But that is very limited. That intelligence has very limited program, and it can communicate to real world up to a certain level. In second generation, one more robot was there, that is called Scara, which is basically a linked arm type robot, that is not humanoid robot. And it can work with X and Y axis, only two dimensions. In third generation, robot called Weber 2 comes into picture, which is having inbuilt arm with motor. Means it can move its arm as by his phone as and when programming instructions given to them. And it is very successful in the case of human interaction. This robot is basically meant for human interaction. The next fourth generation robot called IBO, which is basically a 64-bit processor based robot, which can do almost all types of work, including human interaction and 6-axis movement. It also enables with actuators and sensors, so that this robot can walk in a zigzag way. Earlier robots were walk in a predefined path. Suppose that magnetic path changes and robot turns accordingly. Now the robots comes with sensors. They can move in any kind of path. That may be puzzle path or that may be any kind of. So this robot has some memory function. So it can use that memory function and equipped with and integrated with other devices, other systems to make that system much more easier for operation. In fourth generation, another robot is called Robobot 2. It is having 38 power PC processors. It is enabled with 38 processors and having a wide range of sensing. It can sense a stone coming to him from a far distance. It is also having some, you can say, microchip based intelligence, so that it can hold something, it can predict something, or it can interact with human beings. Now the robot today. Today's robot is basically AI version robot. AI version means they have their own kind of brain, so that they can calculate data, they can communicate with as and when you require, and they are having some speech text technology also, so they can speak also. How robots are classified? Robots are basically classified into four categories. Variable sequence robot means the robot which can perform tasks in one sequential manner and multiple steps. Playback robot that can perform tasks ordered by or programmed by human beings. Third is numerical control, which are controlled by numeric, like the NC systems we are having earlier. That kind of programming done in robot to convert them into whatever task or whatever assignment being fit to them. Third is intelligent robot that can understand its environment, whether it is hot or cold. They can sense, because they are enabled with sensors and processors, so they can sense that, and they can complete the task despite of any challenging environment is there. What are the robot accessories? The main accessory of a robot is manipulator or rover, through which it is, as it is the main body and it connects to links and joints to make the structural part of a robot. And this structure has multiple segments to make those segments movement in certain degree of freedom. Next is end effector. End effector is basically wrist of the robot. It can perform holding task, it can perform gripping task, it can perform welding task, and it is so arranged it can vary its size of gripping. Means it can hold small item also and big item also in a single grip. Next is actuator. Actuators are basically hydraulic cylinder or pneumatic cylinder kind of arrangement, which is having some valve mounted over it, and it is connected to the robot to keep their arm move forward and bring back, keep their leg move forward and bring back. So these are the actuators. Next is sensors. Sensors are basically kept to sense the environment like pressure, what is the pressure, what is temperature, whether it is hot, whether it is cold, that kind of sense they do by means of the sensor. Controller is basically a data receiving point through which instructions are being fed to the robot. Then this, as we discussed, is connected to the end effector and it is having multiple degree of freedom. Like you can see here, it is having a pitching motion also, it is having yaw motion also, and it is having roll motion also. So it is having multiple degree of freedom as and when required. We are used to control this degree of freedom. This is a basic robot configuration. The first one is Cartesian coordinate type configuration, where only linear motion is possible. Third one is cylindrical, where two linear motion and one rotational motion is possible. Third one is spherical motion, where two rotational and one linear motion is possible. Next is articulated motion, means it can rotate from that joint to rotation or to linear also. Next is SCARA. SCARA means the rotation can take place in two different planes. So first is Cartesian rectangular system. In Cartesian system, if you see, we have x, y, and z direction, and all are subjected to linear motion. So, the robot manufactured based on Cartesian system needs a frame on which it is mounted to move in x, y, and z direction in to and fro movement. And the sweep area of vertical, it is same here on as a stroke, and transverse stroke, vertical stroke, and horizontal stroke. This all three strokes makes it sweep area. The sweep area is very less, and it is in cubical format basically. The cylindrical robot has having 1 degree of rotation and 2 degree of linear movement. So its sweep area is more than the Cartesian coordinate robot, as it can rotate in two directions. Spherical robot is having basically 2 directions for rotation and 1 direction for linear movement. So its sweep area is more than cylindrical Cartesian, and it can perform in angular movement also. Earlier robots were not allowing movement in angular direction. In planes can be changed in any angle. articulated example of articulated cylindrical or articulated coordinate system where the planes are at an angle and at an angle rotation is also possible. So the sweep area is much more controlled. Next is selective compliance assembly. This is called SCADA robot. This type of structure or robotic application we are using in industry for drilling, like of drilling machine, like of application where drilling is very difficult and the size and geometry of the equipment is so that drilling cannot be done manually. So this type of robots are being manufactured, carried with this and go for drilling.
तो कुछ नींद हावी हो गया तो कुछ बाहर जाने के लिए आपको जो चाहिए
Robot reference frame. So how the joints are being rotated, in which axis, and how the degree of freedom of the robot is being controlled. Say this is an example of a robot frame where the end effector is having X, Y and Z. All three axes for movement means for rotation as well as translation. And in Z axis to vertical column can also move in X, Y and Z axis. The angular plane can also shift from one angle to another angle. Now robot control method. So basically two types of control methods we are using, non-servo control method and servo control method for robotic application. And all these control methods are being controlled by means of programming which is fed into the robot. In control method, each and every joint which is connected to the robot are being controlled and able to move in a angle or in a axis wise, lateral direction also to accomplish a cycle. And every pin point is having a limited sequence. Let this program accomplish this programming is accomplished by means of sequence of move. Which movement is to be taken where? That is being fed in the program. And all those programs are so connected with the mechanical item like actuators and sensors to control that movement as per program and enable this as and when required. So these type of robots are basically low cost and they are easy to maintain, but their relative movement speed is high as compared to other robots because they are limited access. And they are having limited flexibility. They are not that much flexible. You can perform so many tasks with a single robot. It is not possible. And the actuation method is basically hydraulic or pneumatic. Next is servo control method where food can be moved from one point to another point. The robot can move from one point to another point. And that point is being controlled by means of sensors and other controlling mechanisms like links, joints. And it can move to continuous path also. From one point to another point, two continuous paths, two variable paths, both are possible. to this servo control. In servo control, what actually happens? There is a feedback system. It is a closed loop system where the first one is the open loop. Since it is a closed loop system, it is getting a feedback of the operation, and every feedback is being read by the system, or rechecked by the iteration of the programming to control that position. So it is very precise and very reliable. In point-to-point control, the in points are programmed in point 1 to point 2. Do some operations over here, then directly come to this point and do the operations over here. In between, whatever is the process, they are not bothered about. But when we say about continuous path, whatever stages are being come in these 2 points, all of them being covered by this. Continuous path. Then robots in 4th hierarchy. Robots in 4th hierarchy basically enabling the automation process. What are the manufacturing process we had earlier? That is being automated nowadays in almost every segment or every manufacturing unit, that may be automobile, that may be power generation, that may be semiconductor manufacturing, all are being automated nowadays. So the robots are so programmed like that, but so enabled to in today, they can enable the automation process also. Why these robots are so dependable? Why we depend on the robot? Because they are much more, their efficiency is much more better than what is being done by human beings. Human can make error on a repeatability kind of work. But in robots are made for repeatability work. They can repeat the same process again and again without any error. So that is the reason why we are using robots. Then enhance productivity. By means of robot, we can enhance our production capacity and production quality. Whatever we are, suppose there is organization where 100 numbers of employees are working, converting 1,000 ton production. But by means of robot, say 50 numbers of employees are required for 200 ton production. So that productivity can be increased. Then flexibility, reliability and adaptability. Means robots can do flexible with the operation. Robots are flexible with their process, and they are much more reliable than human beings. Because it is a program, it will do what it is being taught. So it is much more reliable. And it can adapt any kind of, you can say, environment or any kind of situation. Suppose in steel plant, there are certain processes where hot blooms or hot plates are coming out of the furnace, which cannot be carried by, earlier it was carried by human being also, but nowadays the process should not be carried by human being. So now the implementation of robots are coming into those places. Next is precision and accuracy. Robots are much more precise and accurate as compared to human beings. And they can do real-time analysis also. Real-time analysis means they are programmed such that some calculations to be done before the process, so they should not stop. The program and the calculation is being done on the background, and they can do their process. As the calculation means they can come to the result and that result will be incorporated into the solution. Then decentralization and decision making. Now the robots are coming with decision making. They can observe the scenario, they can read the data, they can calculate the data, and after calculation, they will give some decisions. Then integration with technology. A single robot can work various types of jobs or various types of activity in our organization we can do. That activity may be welding, that may be machining, that may be assembly. If program that single robot can do material handling also, single robot can do assembly line job also. So this integration is now possible. Man-machine collaboration means what human thinks, it is required. Human only gives data for the requirement. It is required. And the requirement is fed into program and that is being converted to robot into action. Then there is resilience and sustainability. It improves sustainable growth and sustainability of the robot. It can also do packaging work, it can also do agriculture work. Now the challenges. What are the challenges with a robot with 4,000? The challenge is cost. Now everyone is looking after to reduce the cost of the component or cost of the operation or cost of the process. But when you go for the robotic or automation, initially there are some costs. So that initial cost is a challenge. That is not possible for, say, a small organization to invest that much crores of rupees for their application. Then lack of a standard. Means, suppose the product is being manufactured without any standard practice, without any standards, it is not at all available. There are in practical life, there are the requirements where products are being manufactured out of standard. In that case, it is very difficult to for a robot to do so many activities at a one time. That is design challenge. Design is not a predefined line. It is a changing, ever changing process. It will change today, it will change tomorrow, it will change at any point of time. So that much changing requires that much type of program, that much type of process. So it is the challenge how to make, incorporate those changes directly to the process. Then inflexibility. Wherever flexibility is required, it is easy or make them flexible. But when there is a standalone process, that standalone process can be done then next is safety concern. There are so many processes of so many industries which works on very unsafe atmosphere or unsafe conditions. In those conditions, all robots cannot work for that special material, special application is required. That is a challenge. How to convert those applications or material into process. Then workforce skill for implementing robotics in present industrial revolution. Workforce skill needs to be upgraded day by day to improve or to understand how to convert your conventional process into a non-conventional process. Then workforce and training. Now, in the manufacturing industry, no one wants to invest their time in training and on these skills. So that is also a challenge. How to improve those training, special training process. Because special training is a little bit time consuming and cost effective also. So it is a challenge. Then managing workflow. Suppose in an organization which is producing a component that is having different workflow process. Raw material comes in, it is having a process, then it is again shifted to another process, then it is a machine, then it is assembled, then again one more process will be there. All these workflows, how to convert it so easily? That is a challenge for robotics because they don't have that much program or that much integration. It can be converted to robot applications. Next is robot ethics. The difference between man and robot is basically that they don't understand your ethics. They are not ethical. Whatever you told them to do, they will do. If you say to destroy, they will destroy. They don't think anything. But human, being a woman, they think whether it will be destroyed or not. But they don't think. They don't have their own mind. Whatever they thought, they will do. So this ethics is a challenge. How to incorporate ethics in robots.
So thank you sir for your presentation. So anyone wants to ask a question?
Thank you, sir, giving for detailed information about industrial revolution and robotics terms. My question is about the environmental sustainability. How we are shifting from the industrial 4.0 revolution to industry 5.0. So basically, what is opportunity and challenges for in terms of robotics or automation in industry 5.0?
Actually, in industry 5.0, it is basically AI version. Means incorporation of artificial intelligence into robotics or into present system, present improved system what you are having in that, so that it can process your past data. So the challenge is, as I said in my slide, the challenge is how to control that data, how to secure that data, because nowadays we came to know so many bank frauds and everything is coming. All this happens because of data only. So people are playing with data. So how you control your data and how to save your data, that is a big challenge in industry 5.0. Because you are sitting here, you are manufacturing something that is being connected to the AI, that is being connected to cloud computing. Someone can hack sitting, say 1,000 kilometers from here, and they can track your data and they can. So that is a big challenge. For which government is still working. There are certain courses are also started in various international universities also, like cyber security. These are the courses being adapted in international university and in India also. How to control those data? That is the big thing.
Thank you. Thank you.
So the foremost very thank you sir for the session. My question is, when we are in the industry 4.2 and we are moving towards 5.2, what are the skill centers, where are they located, how we can apply so that skill force of India can get developed and we can innovate like China?
Skill center, if you say, means we have to Google. What Kolkata Skill Center. Because I read, we had Google that.
We have thousands of engineering colleges.
Correct.
But to work in industry, to operate a robot, you must be trained somewhere or the other.
Correct.
There must be a robotics college also.
So the robotics colleges, as I said, the robot.
So, as we get trained in engineering, there must be colleges to train us in robotics also. In NIT Center, we have robotics laboratory, very small thing. But to compete with the countries, to stand as the number one nation in the world in the field of industry 5.0, every nook and corner we must have some robotics college. That's what I believe.
Yes, so
Then only can-
that is good only, but there is a limitation. Limitation is, see, teaching is one part, coming to college is one part, and getting real world situation is another part. So if you say कि coming to college and overcome all nooks and corners, definitely. Coming to that point, how will he skilled? He can skilled only by coming to the real world. Means you have, there is nothing called you can train here and you can be so much skilled. It is not like that. When you come to real world, you can work there. At that time only you can polish your skills. At that time you will be skilled. That is my point. That is what I meant to say.
Thank you, sir.
So, thing is not like that.
Thank you, sir. Very nice presentation I saw just now. Okay, so sir, my question is in the same line actually. If you go to any industry, there are a lot of automations are happening there. Okay, they are using PLC line. Okay, so if you see a PLC, any PLC, can you tell me the name that is made in India? I didn't say like that. Okay, so simple microprocessor also, if you think microcontroller, those are also not made in India. So if we are talking about AI, we are on top layer, we are actually working. Okay, so if we go to this line, there we are not working. So if we are talking about basics, we are not working on basics. So where we are starting? If everybody is producing, we are using those. So we should not do
This is
that.
an opportunity for you. Means not for you, even for a country.
Yes, sir.
It is an opportunity.
Simple microprocessor should be started.
The problem is in India, R&D work is very less. People are directly involved in R&D is very less as compared to other countries. If you see other countries like US or Germany or other European countries, they were having establishment, they were having investment for R&D purpose. But in India, people are believe in buy and use processes. They don't believe to invest for R&D. That is the main reason I believe we are having very less improvement or very less command for the development of microprocessor
Yes.
or PLC.
Like robotics, if we
But nowadays the thing is little bit changed. Now industries like Tata, industries like L&T, they were setting their own microprocessor based semiconductor industries, like Tata Electronics, that is already established in Chennai, Tamil Nadu. Like L&T, they are establishing a semiconductor plant in Gujarat. So, when these establishments come, there will be a need of R&D. At that point of time, definitely we will come with Indian microprocessor and India-based PLC. That will take time, definitely, but there will be a day. That is a, at least we have a started working on that.
Thank you.
How
Thank
many
you.
PLI schemes are there?
Huh?
Schemes are being
Schemes are being, government has also implemented so many schemes like entrepreneurship development programs are there.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir, for your nice presentation. So definitely our participant will be benefited from your this presentation. So now it's time to facilitate our guest. So I would like to call Dr. Anupam Kumari, UG and PG program coordinator, for facilitating the our chief guest. Thank you. So our next session is a hands-on training in the CAD lab. So you can assemble there after 15 minutes. After there is a tea break. So after 15 minutes we will assemble in the CAD lab for the hands-on training.
बंद करिए आप भी